Roger Reaves. Roger, you are a well-known drug smuggler.
Yes.
You've got a history of this. You started with marijuana, and then you went to cocaine.
Yes, but that's what most people are interested in. But there was a life before that, before I left the farm.
Tell me.
And that was about moonshine.
Oh, really?
We put in 36,000 laying chickens. And the price of feed kept going up, and the price of eggs kept coming down until we was going to lose the farm. So I decided to take some of that chicken feed and turn it into moonshine. And it wasn't long before I was making 1,000 gallons a week. And that went on for about a year. I paid most of the farm off and all the trouble I had.
Where was this?
Oh, in Georgia, yeah, just Telfair County in the southern part of Georgia. Now, whiskey was legal across the river in Florida, but in Georgia, they shoot and kill you. They'll send you off to the chain gang for 10 years. So I was making this whiskey, and my old buddy turned me in. I was too much competition for him, and there was 8 of them waiting for me. And I went through the woods and with my pickup truck over logs and bouncing, and they was right behind me in their car with the sirens going. A siren never been heard in those part of the woods before. And I finally jumped out of it and run through the woods, and all 8 of them jumped out and emptied their pistols at me. I got shot in the neck, and they put the bloodhounds on me, and I ran and got in Horse Creek, and that thing had ice in the edges of it. And I must have swam down that creek in that icy water till I turned blue, got out on the other side, and I went out to California. So that was I got some fame before I ever. And
that was the beginning of your smuggling.
Yes,
Your illegal.
That's the first time I found out that you could break the law, and it was quite fun.
You enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it completely, certainly. And the people that you met were just full of life and just wonderful people. So that's where I started. And I came out to California, and my wife and I, we went to work and managed an apartment building, and they're in Torrance. And I shoveled concrete and drove nails and became a counterfeit electrician. They never did know. I worked 2 years, and they didn't know I wasn't an electrician. But if go out on a job and they'd be an electrician and we'd be pulling wires, I didn't know which one to hook. I said, "You hook them and I'll pull them." "What, really?" "Yeah." I'd pull those things, and I worked on those big jobs and had a good time. Then I got on the fire department in Redondo Beach, and there's 400 people took the test for that job, and I got it. It was like winning the lottery. You only work 9 or 10 days a month, made about $700 a month. Wow, I just thought that was great. So I got on the back of a hook and ladder truck, and I did some pretty fancy work there with that hook and ladder. I enjoyed that. So here comes the smuggling part. I'd got in the antique business, and I'd go back to Missouri. And for all you don't know, that there was millions of antiques left there. The settlers would come from all over the East, New York to Miami, to go to California and Oregon. And they'd come across the river on ferry with all their stuff, and they bought these Studebaker wagons. They were called schooners. And they couldn't near get what all they brought on the train with them, so they had to leave it. And that stuff still, some of the big stuff is still there. And I hauled semi-loads out and had auctions here in California. So I made enough money. I bought me a nice airplane, and then I'd go down to Mexico with Mari and the babies, and she'd read in a hammock and potty train the babies, and I'd go fishing. And somebody said, "Why don't you haul some marijuana back?" I said, "I don't know nothing about it. I've heard the kids are smoking it." "Man, that's the hottest thing since pancakes." I said, "What do you pay me?" He said, $10,000. I said, "Throw some of that shit in there, man." So they did, and I flew it across the border. There wasn't nothing between Mexico and the United States but a barbed wire fence, if that. And I flew up the Colorado River and landed, and they gave me $10,000. And there wasn't much marijuana either, maybe 200 or 300 pounds. And I took it home, and it was in a big paper bag, and I shook it on the bed, and $100 bills fell out. It was all loose. And Davy grabbed a $100 bill and crawling around. Mari put her hand over her mouth like, "What in the world?" And I thought, this can't quite be right. That was 2 years take-home pay on the fire department. And I said, nothing, just absolutely nothing. And so I went to see a criminal defense lawyer, and I put $100 bills on and said, "Mister, I got one question to ask you, 2 minutes. What would happen to me if I got caught bringing some pot back from Mexico in my airplane?" He said, what's your criminal history? I said, I don't have one. He said, speeding, tickets, parking. I said, mister, I've never had a parking ticket, speeding ticket. He said, you on the fire department? I said, yes, sir. He said, you'll get probation at the very worst. You get a 1 year sentence and you spend 4 years at some camp breaking leaves. And I said, are you sure? He said, yeah, there's nothing, that ain't nothing. So I said, I found a little bit more, and that was true. That's about what it was. And so I went and bought me a bigger airplane. I bought me a Cessna 207. Boy, I'd go down there, and I'd get $40,000 a day. Now that thing would haul 1,100 pounds, and it was just wonderful. So I was going to make $300,000 and go back to the farm. And I got that $300,000 so quick it'd make your head swim. So I said, let's go, Mara, let's quit this and go. She dug her heels right into, you don't remember the ticks and the red bugs and the fleas and the mosquitoes, the rattlesnakes, cottonmouth moccasins like I do, and all that hard work. I'm not going. So anyway, she talked me out of it. So I called my mother in Georgia. My dad had died many years before, and I took her to Disneyland in my new Cadillac. She said, what you doing, boy? I said, I'm hauling pot, Ma. She said, how much are you making? I said, I'm making $40,000 any day I want to go down there. She said, my. I said, what in the world will they do if they catch you? And I told her what the lawyer said. And I says, what do you think, Ma? She said, do you need a co-pilot, son? That's just how it was, and that's how it started.
What year was this?
Pardon?
What year was this?
Oh, 1973. And so I did 13 loads with that 207. And on the 13th one, I was doing one a day. Maury was packing apples and toys and stuff for the children. I was taking it back, and I was like Mr. Santa Claus coming. More and more people was coming to that little place. So it was too short of a runway to land, to take off. I could land. It was 900 feet in sand. And so I landed there, spent the night in an old barn, and roosters crowing in the morning and donkeys. It was an awful sound. But anyway, they take me down to the river every morning, and I'd brush my teeth in the little river about knee deep. Beautiful little place. And in amongst the cactus, those men were there, and I'd take off, and I had gasoline in the plane that I'd gassed it up the night before. And then a young man would get in there, a very small man, and we'd take off and go 20, 30 miles away to a highway, maybe a freeway. And the men would bring out the trucks, and they had their guns on the trucks on the other end, and about a mile or so, and I'd land between them, and they'd come with the truck, and they'd put the 1,000, 1,100 pounds of marijuana in the plane, and it was like a bucket brigade, and I'd stop, shake all their hand, and then I'd take off and right over the other truck. And I remember sometimes there'd be maybe 30, 50 truck cars in a row. And it was a highway patrol car with his dome on top, but it wasn't turning. So that's how it was. And then on load 13, the that little thing was going off in my stomach, like, don't do it, fear. I've learned to listen to it now real clear. But at that time, it was just beginning. And the next morning, I went down to the airplane with those guys and got in the airplane to fire it up, and we was going to taxi back to the end of the little strip. And pow! I thought a tire blew out. And Pedro, the young fellow, policia, Roger, policia. And it dawned on me, and I just pushed to the firewall, and I only had about 400 or 500 feet in front of me. And just at the end, I was looking at the airspeed indicator. When it got about 45, I knew that it would fly. So I pulled it straight up, and the end of the runway went, and they opened up with 4 machine guns or AK-47, and they riddled that airplane. I mean, riddled it. There was 80 bullet holes in the cockpit with me. I got one across the top of my head, my kneecap shot off, and my toe end of it shot off. And of course, I didn't know that at the time, and so I pulled the power. I don't know. I thought they had shot the cables in two because there was no elevator. But I found out now, practicing it, that if you're just standing up on its end, there is no elevator control. So I pulled the power, and I went and hit in the river, and the wings came off, fell down, and then it bounced, and the next time it hit, the whole firewall forward fell and came under the airplane. And I think I was knocked out because Pedro was, come on, Roger, come on. And I jumped out into the river in knee-deep water, and two of those federales was coming down still shooting, and two of the bullets hit the airplane. Well, I had a 9mm taped to the top of the radios. Now then, it's right laying up in this holster. I get that and pop a few caps down the way, and I like to say, when the rabbit gets the gun, the farmer, he run. So they, with their rifles, they ran from a little pistol. Anyway, we took off up, and I saw that Pedro's foot was almost shot off. It had shot him from the right side, maybe the same bullet that hit my toe, and it just took the whole bone out of his ankle. And he was running on that thing, it didn't bleed. So I was wanting to go down through the sand and through the riverbed. He said, no, that's the way they'll go. And we went up the river through the cactus, and there was an old donkey. I mean, she must have been 30 years old, big one with a sway back. Her name was Charlotte. And Charlotte, she was really old. And he petted her. She was from the village. And we got on that donkey without bridle and saddle and took off and got away. There's a whole lot more story to that story enough, but that's enough of that one.
You didn't get caught?
We didn't get caught, no.
Wow. And where do you go from there? You lose your plane.
Well, let's see. I went and bought me a twin engine, a twin Beech airplane as soon as I recovered. It took me several months to get where I could walk without my foot being above my head. You get your toe shot, it hurts. I mean, it just keeps thumping. And so I bought a twin Beech airplane, and I must have, so I started, they had an Operation Starlight, or I believe across the southern border of the United States. And they had little pickup trucks, every little hill along from San Diego all the way to Texas. And they was catching the planes and the pilots coming across, 5 or 6, 7 a week. So I thought, I can't come across there. So I thought I'd go out near Hawaii. So I would land in the middle of Baja, about halfway down, 20 minutes by flight inland from Mulahe. And there was a goat ranch there. And there was a runway that they used to haul meat out of. And that was such a pretty place. Mesquite tree and doves by the thousands. And there's a man there, one, and he had fast walking mules. And I asked him, could I unload there? And yes. So I remember I gave him only $500, and I could unload one of those mesquite trees, and he'd wait for me all day. And I'd fly into Mulahe, and the plane would get washed, and I'd rent a room and take a nap, and that'd be coming up from somewhere far down south. And late in the afternoon, I would fly back out to the goat ranch and load up, and then I would go out to Guadalupe Island, 200 miles off of the coast of Baja. And then from there, I would go northwest, and I figured about 300 miles from San Diego out towards Hawaii, and I was be low down. I'd probably be 50, 100 feet above the ocean, and I'd come in behind the Santa Barbara Mountains, those Santa Barbara Islands, excuse me, and I'd pull it up and go out to the desert and unload. I did that 100 times, at least. So that was my key. In fact, I brought the price of marijuana. It was $100 a pound when I started, and when the season was over, it was $60 here in Los Angeles. Yeah, so that's what happened on the marijuana.
And you progressed after that?
Progressed after that. Yeah, I got put in prison there in Mexico. I hired another guy going to fly for me, and he got messed up in Hermosillo, and he had my false name that I was at a hotel, and they come arrested me, and they put me in prison there and really tortured me. I mean, tortured me bad, almost to death.
What kind of torture?
Pardon? Well, first off, they beat the heck out of you and knock you around. 5 or 6 of them, they thumping on you. But that didn't particularly scare me. It was a filthy place in the back. And then they put me in a little cell. I guess it was 5 foot square. And every once in a while, they'd take out and be something new. And then they use the cattle prods on me until it's burnt me up, my thighs. And they put your head under a seltzer water. And so 3 of them would hold you. And if you ever got one whiff of that, they no way you're going to stay down if you're human. So you come up, I learned to act like that just before you had to breathe. So I found out that there was 7 American DEA on my case. And they told these fellas to stop me. And they wanted a confession. Well, if you get a confession, you got a minimum of 6 years in prison there in Mexico. And if you don't confess, they can keep you in jail, I believe, 2 years, but that time you can pay somebody off. So I done found that out before I went in. And so after the electrical and stuff, they came in. What did they do next? Oh yeah, they took me out. I was naked, and they'd put food in at different times of the day. Sometimes 24 hours, sometimes every 2 hours apart. So you didn't know, and that's where they beat people up outside. They'd bring them people at night, drug addicts, and they'd thump on them, and they'd cry and moan and beg them. And you next, son of a bitch, you next. They'd open that door, and so they'd take me out and chain me across and pull me over a barrel and buttered up my bum. And they poked it completely full of hot chili, ground up chili. I mean, that stuff was hot, and I talked ugly. And I looked at that guy, and if I can ever find you again, I'll kill you.
That was their idea of torture?
That was torture, for sure it was torture. And then they came and they put a dead man in there, and he was a skinny black man, and he was wrapped in paper. Looked like a mummy with newspaper about an inch wide, wrapped from head to toe, every bit of him. And they put him on a meat hook and hooked it on a bolt on the wall. And I thought, if you idiots, you think that scared me. I killed hogs and cows and stuff. Anyway, as he thawed out, I could see his liver. And then as he thawed out, his head's hanging sideways, and it looked like he was crying, the tears coming out of his eyes. I thought that was just pitiful to hang a corpse on himself. But then his bowels and his all started emptying in the floor. And that formaldehyde was just awful. I mean, it was awful. So I lay on that filthy floor and put my head right up under the door. There was a 1/2-inch crack under there, and put my lips under it, and I was sucking air to keep from doing that. And I had visions or hallucination, and there was pink pigs all with wings on them in the cell flying. And I woke up and I was in the hospital, and there was a doctor telling me, breathe, man, breathe, and they had the oxygen on me. And I think I was pretty close to death there if they hadn't found me smelling that formaldehyde. So I decided it's best if I don't go back to Mexico. My wife came down and paid a bribe and got me out, $17,000, and I walked out before daylight out the back door. I was like, shh, come quickly. And they whisked me away. It wasn't nothing, so it wasn't escape. It was all in it, just what they were doing. So I went down to Colombia and hooked up with some people and hauled a few loads of marijuana. And things just didn't work out. They were I'd buy one thing and get another. So I met some people, and they says, let me introduce you to somebody. So they introduced me to, let's see, I forget what his name was. He's having a big birthday party over on the coast, and they flew me over to the coast on Avianca Airlines, and it was like a place in the jungle. And I guess it had a mile-long runway, and off to the side was all kind of airplanes pushed up into sideways, and a wasp nest under them, a D-8 with the rain going down the engine of it. They didn't care. There was so much money piled up there, I could have made millions of dollars just taking their junk away. What they did is the airplanes would get old, and they'd buy a new one in the United States and put that number on it, so they just abandoned those airplanes there. But on the way over, I met a lovely couple, beautiful couple, Mario Matilda Sanchez. And she spoke fluent English and French, and so I was there, and there's an old log house, and a lot of people, new airplanes landing, new helicopters, and everybody walking around with their bags of cocaine, and federal judges there and police from every town in the country. I guess there was 300 or 400 people there. And I'm walking along the beach, and there was a nice-looking young woman, and she came and started walking with me in the old red sand. There was a river come in, so it's kind of clay got in the sand. We was walking along there, and she's just talking. Said, this man invited me to come and fly in his airplane. I have no idea why he invited me. Honey, I know why he invited you. So she was just a poor, innocent girl, a young woman, it wasn't a girl, and dressed rather poor clothes. And so Mario Matilda was coming down the beach, and Mario said, Roger, Mario suggests you get away from the young lady. She's the girlfriend of the most vicious killer in Colombia. So I thank you, Matilda, and I went on up the road and I said goodbye to the lady and went on my way. And there was a lot of, I guess there's 15 or 20 houses up on high stilts along the beach. And those poor folks they're just men. We was in a bunkhouse and by the old log house. And we had a whiskey or two. And I'm standing there just talking with these guys in Spanish as best I can. And the door comes open, a woman come flying in that room. I mean, flying, slammed into me. And here comes a guy, the most vicious killer of Colombia. What it is, I understand she wouldn't go in the bed with him or in the bedroom with him. So he takes her and slams her into me. And I thought, oh, baby, I'm fixing to have trouble with the most vicious killer of Colombia. And anyway, his friends got around because he was about drunk, and they got him settled in there. Okay, yeah, and he went on. So after that, this guy Mario took me to Envigada and says, I want you to meet somebody. So he took me to an old house. I mean, probably 200 years old, and at one time it had been like a plantation house. And there's hitching rails out front, and there was 20 or 30 men with their fedoras on. They was waiting to talk to the Hefe. And I was ushered right through the crowd and went into an absolute palace of an old house. Had holes in the floor. And the floor was uneven from the earth moving. And a drop-dead gorgeous woman asked us, did we want a cup of coffee? And this night she got one of little dainty cups. And in a few minutes she ushered us in, and I met Jorge Ochoa. And so nice. He had 12 telephones on his desk, and all of them was a different color. And he said, if anybody calls, this is New York, and this is from Seattle, and this is Washington, this is Denver, I know who I'm talking to. So I thought that was kind of cute with all the different telephones. And so he asked me what kind of airplanes that I had, and I had a turbojet Aero Commander, and I had a DC-3, and I had a Twin Beach. I said, yeah, I can move your cocaine. And he said, well, we pay $5,000 a kilo. And I said, well, how much will you put in there? You put 500 kilos at least. And I said, well, that's $2.5 million. That's right. So, okay. He said, but let me call my compadre. So he sent the pretty woman somewhere in the house, and in walks the most vicious killer from Colombia, Pablo Escobar. He hardly remembers me. Well, we shake hands and have a little laugh. And he asked me what kind of airplanes I have, and he didn't speak any English, but I speak a little Spanish, so we got along. And he told me the exactly same thing, pay $5,000 a kilo. I said, how much you got? He said, we waiting on you, senor. So I hauled the load, $2.5 million. I called him up and said, when you want me back, we waiting on you. I went back again, and I went back several times. And then one night I got above the fog, and I couldn't get down with that Aero Commander, 300 miles an hour, and I couldn't make it to Denver, somewhere where it was clear. And I thought, I may die tonight. I only thought that about twice in my life, but that was one time. And so I was supposed to land just north of New Orleans at Lake Pontchartrain on the other side. And I circled, and I was full moon and looking down, dense clouds, white. And so all I could do to try to save my life was to go out and get on the glide slope and come down blind into New Orleans International Airport and land at that big runway with a load of cocaine. Well, I bounced down that runway and kind of got off to one side of it. Thank God I'm alive. And I sat there all night long. We have a thing called ATIS. It's a frequency that you get the weather on. And I kept opening the door of the airplane and checking it. 00, Atlanta, Miami, everywhere I could think of, Denver. Not Denver, anyhow, in all the areas in the area. So the next morning, I walked just a mile to the end of the runway and a mile back from the other way. I stopped about halfway down that runway. And so when it started to thin out a little bit, I was afraid some security guy would drive down that runway and find me. That'd be the end of it. I'd be in life in prison for that. So I was terribly nervous. So I took off, I guess maybe 8 o'clock in the morning. I might have had an hour of fuel left. And I got over the runway where I was supposed to go, and I had a walkie-talkie, and I was talking to Harvey down there. And he said, well, it's breaking up. And I said, yeah, I can see the runway. He said, yeah, but you don't have much visibility here. So I took the airplane and put the nose straight down at the end of that little runway, only 3,000 feet. And I landed on it and got stopped, and I said, that's the end of it for me. I got enough money to last the rest of my life. So I told the Colombians in Miami, and oh, Roger, oh, no, oh, my, oh, no, what are we going to do? They're making their living off of me. I said, can't you find anybody? So I felt sorry for him, and I still was not against making some money, even though I wasn't after it like that again. So I'd gone down to Honduras with my family, and we was looking to buy a farm up like a Lago Azul. That's so pretty up there. And I was thinking a halfway spot to refuel coming out of way down in Colombia. So we got all muddy and our clothes messed up, and we went back to San Pedro Sula and put them in the laundry. And of course they didn't get out when they're supposed to, and we have a ticket back and the planes are all full. So I went for the laundry, and they said, come back in the morning. Well, our plane leaves like at 9 o'clock. So I tell Mari to take the children and go into the airport. And I said, it's easier for one to get to New Orleans on standby than it is for four. So she took the children, and I went, and I got the clothes, and there was a big pile of them on my back, and got an old car, and I told the guy, here's $100, just go faster. And he just blew the horn faster. He didn't go any faster. And we got to the airport, and the airplane's taxiing out on the tarmac. And I run around the building with the clothes on my back, and I wave to the pilot. It's a brand new 727, and he's a young man. He smiles and waves back at me. And so then I see Mari's face in the cockpit, and I see the nose wheel come down. He puts on brakes and stops for me, and puts the steps out there, and I run for it, and he takes off again like a hitchhiker going to leave you. He's just playing with me. So I got on the plane, and everybody clapped big when we all them clothes. And so my daughter Miriam was about halfway back, and I think she was in the aisle, but she moved over to the middle, and I got rid of the clothes somehow, and I'm sitting down there, and we take off, and the wheels come up with a good thump, and she's 9 years old, about that, and so it got on up about 5,000 feet, and it was a little click, click, and she said, what was that, Dad? I said, he just turned on his autopilot. That guy sat inside the window that looked like a CIA agent. He said, you fly these things? I said, I got a few hours, mister. My name's Barry Seal. How you do? He says, I was a pilot for TWA and da-da-da-da-da. And said, I just got out of prison this morning. And I thought, you're full of shit. You just want me to talk. So anyhow, we talked all the way to New Orleans, 2 hours or whatever it was. And when we got off the airplane in New Orleans, he had done told me about himself and his flying skills. And when we got off the plane in New Orleans, I didn't believe a word he said. So, but there was 20 people, I reckon, there to meet him. Little children hanging on to him, crying, a pretty wife, an old mama and grandma, all of them. And it was, like I said, they couldn't have staged this. He's telling the truth. So after the family got through hugging him, I went over there, I told Mari, write our name and address. I said, Barry, I might have some work for you. Will you come out to Santa Barbara? So he came out to Santa Barbara, and I had that to Aero Commander. And I told him, I said, I have some work for you if you're interested in flying some cocaine. Yeah, certainly. And that's what I'd paid. I paid $2,000 a kilo. And that's what was that, $1 million a trip. So he said, yes. So I said, well, let's come up and see what you can do. So he got in that Aero Commander. It was just like he was just at home, and it click, 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 click. He didn't have to look at anything. He knew what to do. We took off down there, and we went up, and he just wrung that thing out. I thought he was going to tear the wings off of it. And so when he landed, he did the famous Bob Hoover, cut the engines and have it like a falling leaf. I was rather pale, but I lived through it, and I thought I'd give him a job. So Barry started flying, and then they wanted more. They just wanted more than we could haul. So I hired my friend from a long time ago. We'd gone around the world together on a shrimp boat and hauled hashish out of Pakistan. Yeah, Jerry Wills, he's still alive down in Palos Verdes. And he's a pilot, so I hired him. So I had 2 airlines running. And the money just fell on me. I didn't know what to do with it all. I bought the land that now is Moreno Valley and paid for the planning and zoning of that. I would take plane loads of money, $15 million at the time, charter a jet, and fly to Grand Cayman Island. There'd be 2 pilots, and I have to land on the money, lay on top of it, looking down through them. And there'd be the vans back up to the plane, take that money and put it in the bank. So they were just more money than I could imagine. I decided to fly back commercially one day, and I landed in Miami, and my name was there, and oops, you're wanted for continuing criminal enterprise, which carries life in prison. What? For possession of marijuana? From 1973? People had told. 11 people had told. Best friends, business partner, everybody had told on me. So there was no way much I could get out of it, and my bail was $5 million. And the lawyer said, well, I got that. If you give me $6 million, I got a guy in Texas that'll cover it because it's called nebula hearing. So I gave him the $6 million, and my wife did, and we didn't see him anymore. He took a vacation. So I got Albert Krieger, or I guess the best lawyer in the world at that time. And I pled guilty to possession of marijuana and income tax evasion, and I got 35 years. And the old judge was Judge Hatter, a black judge, and I believe he'd have took me home with him. He said, they just come after you with a scattergun, didn't they, Mr. Reaves? I see you wanted to come out here and live high on the hog. So he knew our southern jargon, and he gave me 35 years, but he said, I'm going to suspend all those and run them together, give you 1 5-year sentence. And so he, right after that, they sent me to the most unusual thing. They sent me to Pleasanton, California. 400 beautiful women and 200 men. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
It was just unbelievable. Anyway, it was a circus. You could wear your own clothes and have your own perfumes and shaving stuff, and a beautiful room, 2 of you in it. I mean, it was nice. I guess it was, somebody said it made for Patty Hearst. I don't know. But anyway, I stayed there for about a year. And we'd have a dance once a month, and they'd turn the lights down low on the door, course, and them gals would put it on you. And I paid the guard $500 to bring me a quart of whiskey in, and I put it in a Clorox bottle, and we'd have a party. And one funny was Sarah Jane Moore that had shot President Ford. She said, if I'd have been using my own pistol, I'd have killed the son of a bitch, but I shot and just got his hair. And she was sweet. She was all right. But anyway, she danced, and she danced like this. Boom, boom. I said, Sarah Jane, you must have learned to dance at the same place you learned to shoot. She said, you go to hell. So I didn't get to dance with Sarah Jane no more. So after that day, I got out of prison. They sent me on back to Lompoc Camp, and I got in trouble there, and they sent me back to Terminal Island. And after a couple of years, I was out and released, and I got home. And Mari had rented a house. Had to give up our home in Santa Barbara and everything. So she'd rented a nice house there in Montecito. And I hadn't been home but a few days. And I'd heard Barry might have turned. So, uh-oh. So the phone rang. I was watching the television, and Ronald Reagan Blue Eyes was right on there. He said, we have absolute proof that the communist Sandinista government is in the cocaine running business. And there was his blue eyes, and there was that C-126 bellied in on the runway there at the military base where I used to land in Nicaragua. We refueled there. Barry couldn't believe that we had that tied up. But anyway, Barry called, and he says, I'm coming out tonight. A little French restaurant here in Santa Barbara. Said, I'll meet you there at 9 o'clock. Oh, boy, I was nervous. So I went in, and I looked around. There's about 20, 25 different people, all of them about 40 years old, women with leather skirts, a little bulge under their chest, a little bit more than it should be. And so Barry was leaned back at the back, and he gained weight. And I said, Barry, are you wired? And he said, no, I'm not, Roger. I said, well, you talk. I'm not going to say a word. So he started telling me that they'd convicted him over something. He got 10 years, and now I'm facing life imprisonment in 3 states, so I have turned state's evidence. I've told him everything. I told him about you, but if you'll testify with me, and his hands went up over his eyes, and the tears run between his fingers. I'm so sorry, Roger. I am so sorry. I just can't do 3 life sentences. And I thought, I can't either. So I didn't say anything. So after a while, I said, well, bring your head honcho over. They all DEA, said every one of them. They'd close the restaurant. And the guy drank some good whiskey with me, and the guy was Jake Jacobson. I think he was a crop duster from Alabama. I liked him. We'd have been on the same side. We'd have been all right. So he says, he talked. He says, you know, we got all this evidence on you, and says, you can come down tomorrow to Miami in chains. And if you do, the only place you're ever going to see your family again as long as you live is in a federal penitentiary visiting room. I can promise you that. But if you want to go first class with Maury tomorrow, then that's up to you. We give you all your money, everything you have, a new ID. You can live anywhere in the world you want to live. But you got to testify with Barry against Pablo Escobar and George Ochoa. I thought, wow. Barry said, they're going to kill you, friend. Oh, no, this is in prison and that and the other. And he was stuck his head in the sand. So I says, all right, so I believe I'll take first class. So I went back home. I went out to the airport with them. They got in a DC-9 plumb fat black fool and took off in the sky. I thought, wow, wow, wow. And so I went home, and Maury and I went first class to Miami the next day, and I went to see a lawyer. And I didn't know that his partner got blown out of his shoes but defending a snitch. So he's on a treadmill. I forget what his name was. And he listens to my story. He said, well, I tell you what, I'll defend you for $600,000, but I don't talk to snitches. I said, I'm not a snitch, man. I've got to say something. He said, listen, you go in front of that grand jury and you tell them one thing that somebody else has told them different, you will serve life. They'll use everything you've said against you. He said, no, it's either, he said, being a snitch or witness is like being pregnant. You either are or you're not. Make up your mind. I said, well, I'm not. So that night I went to La Festival Restaurants in Coral Gables, and there was Barry and his wife, Debbie. She was looking nice, and they came in after. They knew I liked that restaurant. He probably went there for that reason. So anyhow, we had dessert with them, and after it was over, I hugged Barry and I kissed him on the cheek. I said, my dear friend, they're going to kill you. Oh, no, no. So I took Maury and the children. We fled to Brazil. And we was in 6 months later, we was up in El Salvador. And I was trying to get $3.5 million that Ochoa and them owed me. And I was calling Mario, and of course he was the one that already stole it, so it didn't matter. So trying to get it. And oh, our problems are over, our problems are over. Good, good, good news. They killed Barry Seal last night. Well, it stunned me. It just shocked me. Barry was my friend. I love Barry. And even though, I know he was a snitch, but listen, he was paying off Bill Clinton, according to what he said, $50,000 every time he landed. He had the CIA there unloading him. He thought he couldn't be hurt. Well, I said, you can't get caught in Colombia and you can't get caught in Nicaragua, so I guess we got a ticket to ride. So that's what we did. So when they all turned against him, he talked. And so we was there, and they killed him. And I went back and told Miriam and Maury, and they both cried. We were sorry. Sorry, I said sorry.
The Colombians?
Pardon?
The Colombians killed him?
Yeah. And I flew the guy up, back up there a little bit on the first load I did for Pablo and them. They was ugly. I was on a banana plantation, and it was a bad, ugly man. Got in the back with a MAC-10 pistol, and he was to make sure I went to Louisiana. I could have went to Argentina. He didn't know north from south. Oh, what an ugly man, Ronaldo. So we took off on that clay banana plantation strip, and that little turbojet little wheels filled the wheel wells up with clay. Well, I couldn't get the wheels up. Now, instead of going 300 miles an hour, we're going 150 or 200 miles an hour. We can't make it. So I had a place up in Belize that I used to land at and refuel when I was hauling the marijuana. So I told him, we got to land there and get this thing cleaned up, get some fuel. No, he stuck the gun to my head. No, I'll shoot you. I said, go ahead, fool. You're going to die too. So I landed, and old Mr. Carter was there, and it was a Carver Ranch, I think 13,000 hectares. And we landed, and a boy came out and washed the plane. I remember we had chicken stew or soup on the porch and was just treated royally. They got the plane, flew on in, and Barry met us with the unload. I believe that time. I don't know. Anyhow, he met Barry, and that's the guy that went back and killed Barry. Shot him in the parking lot, riddled him. There was 3 of them, and they said wearing green clothes, and so boy, they ran to the hotel and changed and put on other green clothes. Going down the freeway, they got caught. So he just got out of prison. One of them died in there, and I don't know what happened. The other one, that one got out. And he had a big woman with a butt that big. It shows him coming out of the prison. It looked cartoon. So that was a story of me and Barry Seal, and the cocaine business at Pablo Escobar.
Your dealings with Pablo, tell me about those.
I have a lot of dealings with him. We got in his plane, and we flew. I guess he bought a lot of little ranches and stuff that people owed him, and we flew to a ranch, and it was a rough place. It had logs and stuff. I don't know, but it had a house there and a barn and corral, and had some horses, and he had 5 or 6 trail bikes. And so we got out there, and so he said, "Can you ride a trail bike?" All of them was lined up. I think they did this on purpose. So I got, heck yeah, I can ride a bike, you know. All right. I took it, and it was early in the morning, I guess 8 o'clock in the morning. The grass was that deep and wet. And I took off, and just in front of me was a little ditch, about knee deep and about that wide. And that front tire went in that ditch, and I went over them handlebars and just slid across that grass. And they almost fell off their bikes laughing at me. Of course, they probably did that trick to everybody. So then he said, "Can you shoot this machine gun pistol?" Of course. I'd never seen it before. Anyhow, they strapped that on me, and we drove some cows around, had a fun, barbecued out there that day, and flew back. And then I was complaining once about they kept going further and further down towards Ecuador. They were moving their labs further into the jungle. And I said, "Man, we can't hardly make it now. We're flying all the way to Arkansas. That's 2,500 nautical miles. We got to do something. Come it back, bring it up towards the coast, towards Cartagena." So he landed a brand new helicopter there, and there was a nice-looking fellow came out, and his name Benjamin. He said, "He'll show you where to go. Go where he tells you." So I got in there with Benjamin, nicest fella, and we landed at a military base in Nicaragua. And I met the generals there. There's 2 or 3 of them. And we had a nice dinner. And I don't know what happened to Benjamin, but he went on back. And they said, "Land here anytime you want to. Just radio silence. We'll wash your plane and gas it up. And you take off when you want to. Just not a word." So that's how that happened. And so Benjamin went back and was killed in a helicopter crash just the next week or 2. That was sad. It certainly was. Let me see. About the 3rd time. I reckon I think I saw Pablo 3 or 4 times, but
you never turned on him though.
Pardon?
You never turned on him?
I never turned on anybody, not a living single soul. Kept my mouth shut. That's why I did 33 years in prison. Mm-hmm. Snitches don't do 33 years.
Where were your 33 years?
Okay, well, I started off at did about 2.5 years at the beginning in Terminal Island and Pleasanton, and then whenever I got out, and I had to flee because of the Barry Seal deal. We went to Brazil, and then we moved to France and stayed there for a while. And I found out that there was bugs on my furniture when I shipped it to France, and I fled there and went to Spain. And I met up with Howard Marks, the biggest mistake of my whole life, Mr. Nice. I just did a BBC interview about him. He wrote the book Mr. Nice. He wasn't Mr. Nice at all. He turned me in. And I did hashish. We did hashish, tons of it out of Pakistan, and 20-ton loads out of Thailand, and then out of Morocco. And then he turned me in. So let me see. So I was arrested in Spain, thanks to Mr. Marks. And he'd given me a passport, and he said they owed me $2 million. Go to Amsterdam and go to the train station. And I took the little passport, just like the little spider says to the fly, "Come into my house." And I went into it, and of course I got there, and a big, tall immigration guy says, "Is this your passport?" Brand new British passport. "Yes, sir." And he closed, and he came around and grabbed me by my arm hard. He put me in a little room, and there was a bunch of people in there with turbans on. There was from Bangladesh or wherever. And there's 5 or 6 agents, and the place was just crowded with people outside waiting to get through. Well, I knew my number was up. So just as soon as he put my passport in a clip and turned a little bit, I hit that door and run through those people, knocking them down, run through. I didn't look back to see if he was getting me. And then I went into a room, but there was nothing there. And then there was a little tiny window, and I jumped out that window, slid out on my head, and there was a long corridor. It goes down, and there was nobody in it. I mean, absolutely, I went stretching down that corridor as fast as I could go. And at the end of it was a big, wide, 10-foot wide elevator door, and it said forbidden. And I punched the button, and zip, it opened. And there was just one button, the other one, it went zip down. And there was a KLM uniform with a hat and jacket. Boy, I put that over me. It was too big for me, but I put that hat on. And I went out on the tarmac, and there was just all those 747s for KLM lined up. And a crew was going. There must have been 20 of them off of one of them. I thought, I'll get with them. So I got right in the back of them, and I'm walking along. I walked quite a ways. And I knew that they had my picture. I was dead meat if I didn't get out of there. And they came to the gate, and all of them was holding up their ID badge as they went out. Now, oops, that won't work. So I turned around and went back, and I said, I don't know what in the world I'm going to do. I was really worried. And so I, right before you come to the building of the airport, there was a freeway that goes under the runway, and it went under right there. There was a 10-foot wire fence with a barbed wire, 4 strands wide this way. And I climbed up there, and I grabbed that barbed wire and chinned it up, and there was a policeman, 2 young policemen in a van, and they came up with their little pistols, halt, halt, halt. Well, I'm not about to halt. So I stepped over to the other side or climbed over there, and there was just some shrubbery down below. And I jumped down that 12 feet high, and it was like unbelievable. That was a crown of thorns. Those things was shrubbery that big around with thorns that long on them. They just tore my legs up where I went. I mean, just tore my pants, and it was that was there for a purpose. I couldn't move. I mean, I was paralyzed, like. And so I took that jacket off and put it in front of me and stepped on it. And then I ran through the traffic with those guys still sitting there yelling at me, and there was 4 policemen on the other side of the freeway, 2 men and 2 women, and they just chatting to each other. And I still remember what one woman looked like. And I went right by them. I just slow down and just like walk. And I went in amongst all those people at the airport. And then I went to Nardi trains, and there was an escalator going down. And I said, they think I'm going to Amsterdam, but there was one going to Rotterdam, and brand new one, the train. And so I got on that and went in the bathroom and shut that door and turned it brand new. I said, my feelings exactly. And I took that jacket that I tore up that I had in front of me and put it in the trash, and I tried pulling the thorns out of me, and I knew I had been betrayed. So I went to somewhere and got needles and tweezers and picked all that stuff out of me and washed up and went to the airport. I went to the train station. Of course, nobody showed up. So Howard had turned me in. And he turned me in again. He turned me in again. I couldn't believe it was him. So that was one jaunt. So anyway, they finally got me in Spain, and I'll just tell people like to hear about my escapes. They finally caught me, and 3 times I escaped from them in the streets of Mallorca. And so when they got me, they handcuffed me like this, and they put 2 sets of leg irons on me, and 4 of them with their shotguns behind me, and they take me to court. For extradition, I found out I had double extradition to the United States and to Germany. Now, what in the world am I for Germany for? I'd never done anything. I might have made a phone call to Germany. That's insane. So the lawyer find out that I had hired a German captain, and I'd given him $400,000, and he had gone home, bought him a new BMW and a long cigar, and he was bragging. And they found the $400,000, and they told him, if you'll tell us who give this to you, you'll be home before Christmas. But they forgot to tell him which year. He got 7 years from his own mouth with 0 evidence. And so they took me into court, and I was sitting at the desk, and it was a long time, and the courtroom was packed. There might have been 150 people in it. And I'm sitting there with the 4 policemen, and so I asked the lawyer, how high are we? He said, you'll kill yourself. I said, I'm dead anyway. So 2 of them left to smoke or pee or whatever it was, and when they did, I bound across the courtroom. They had taken my handcuffs off and put them in front of me, and the leg irons, they had to do that, and they put a little scarf over you so you look decent before a judge. So I bound across that courtroom and jumped on that stenographer's desk. She screamed and yelled back. She was 9 months pregnant. Said she almost had that baby right there. And there's a big window, and I kicked that window out. And you could hear a big sucking sound through that courtroom. And I looked down, and it was a long, long, long way down. And I bailed. And there was a car, station wagon, that kind of up on sideways on the sidewalk. And I hit the top of it just like we did on the practicing for the jumping in the nets on the fire department, feet and butt. And that roof went to the ground. And I jumped out of that car like Donald Duck, handcuffed, and got away. And the next day, the newspaper said, Spider-Man escapes. So they caught me and extradited me to Germany, and they gave me 8 years for using a German citizen in an international crime. That was hauling hashish. Wasn't much I could do about it because the captain was telling, and I'd repaired a generator in Malta, and about a 12 crew from Poland saw me and talked to me and had dinner with me. So they would all come if they needed to and testify that I was on the ship and owned it. And so there was no use. So after 1 year, I escaped from that German prison. I went through the bars. I mean, through the bars, and got cut up so bad till the skin was off of me. I almost died. I didn't think it would go, and I was going this way, and the rain was pouring on my head, and I fell out. And then I had to climb up sideways on the bricks and scaffolding. I got to the top, and I lost most of my clothes. And I got right over at the end, and it was 4 stories up. And halfway on the 3rd floor was a guard tower halfway out of the building. They was all along everywhere. They would certainly kill you there. And so I saw a woman that was bringing a guard. I knew the guard, and had a little boy, and they had a double umbrella, and it was raining. I had no shirt or nothing, goosebumps all over. And when she started to go back away from the prison, coming from town, I had seen they'd taken all the razor wire off above the sally port. And so I saw that was a possible escape route. And I jumped on top of that guard tower. It was like a silo, and it went bam, and he went, hey, he jumped. And I went over the wall and jumped on a pile of sand. It was up where the tractor had piled it up. I went knee deep in that stuff, and I ran straight towards that woman. And so they couldn't shoot me. And then I ran around the corner, and man, I was taking some long steps, and I had smiling from ear to ear. And the sirens going off behind me, and I heard blam, 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 blam. And I looked behind me, and that woman was in a big old Buick or something, and she was on the sidewalk knocking the parking meters over, trying to run over me. And so I run behind the car, and she turned and tore the right fender off of her car, and she's just like a devil face screaming at me, and that little boy just hanging on in the car. And I thought, I can't go any further this way. So I jumped on a wall, and it was embedded with glass. And I cut my hands and all up as I jumped over that. And my wife had given me $200, and it was in my running shoe. And I jumped over, and the thing was nearly knee-deep of plowed dirt, mud, and wet. My shoes came off with my money, and I'm running with the socks flapping. Anyway, I get away. Quite a story, a whole chapter on that, how I get to Holland. And when I crawled across that place and crawled up to a carport, and I saw the land of the Netherlands on that tag, I could have kissed it. So that was just some of the escapes. I escaped 5 different times.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the most exciting? That was pretty exciting what you just described. What was your favorite part of your whole shenanigans?
I enjoyed the marijuana. I guess I was just new to it. It was just lovely. I mean, you go to those to buy the marijuana in the Sierra Madres or whatever, and you go out there and drink some of their moonshine, and some cowboy would play songs and build a fire, and they'd cook steaks on a grill. All that was just wonderful. And it was new to me. I'd never seen anything like that. Yeah, that kind of flying. The other stuff flying from Colombia and all was, you flying at 30,000 feet, there's nothing to it. you're doing treetop level, it's a whole lot more fun.
Was it stressful?
No, I didn't have stress at all.
Not at all.
Well, when I'm coming back across the border, I'm certainly alert. I remember there was across the Sonora Desert, there's canals for water. In the moon, I like to fly with a half moon. That way you can see the hills. And I'd pick out a light way away, and then I'd drop down till the light went out, and I'd pull it back up so I know there's no hills between me and that light. But anyway, that light would reflect on the water in those canals, and it would flash in the window just for a flash. It scared me. I would jump like, oh. So that was that, and that was the most of the marijuana, and we had quite a bit of stories to tell. We hauled the hashish out of Pakistan. I guess it was 7.5 tons. Anyway, I bought a float plane, and it came into one of the fjords in Canada, in British Columbia, and unloaded, and I flew it down to Lake Oseti in western Washington State. And that was fun too.
Hold on, you're flying from Pakistan?
No, we came with a boat. We came with a fishing boat.
Oh, I see, okay.
And then unloaded up there, and then, but we was afraid to unload in the United States. But Canada didn't have the kind of Coast Guard, so we landed up there. But I had to fly it down in a float plane, and that was some kind of snotty nose weather. And to put like 1,000 pounds in that float plane till the floats are just about sinking, and go out and come across and land on that lake at night. It's a big lake, and there was some dangerous flying there too. Even before that, my wife and I went up to Alaska and fished, and we bought a salmon trawler, and a whale surfaced under our boat and tore us all up. We had no one line was way behind, so we went. Just said we'd take a vacation. So we went into Chichikov mine, was the richest gold mine in America at that time, or one time, and. A nice little story. Since we had nothing to do, she would walk one way with a 30-06 rifle. There's bears everywhere. We was looking for glass balls on the beach. There was the Orientals had glass balls on their boat before cork, and she'd go one way and I'd go the other way with a 44 Magnum. And one day I was walking up, coming up to a big rock, and a little doe ran out, and a black bear, right behind her, and he killed her. Bam! He hit her behind the neck. Broke her neck, and I shot my pistol. I know that stuff happened, but it's rare that a bear kill a deer. I never heard of it, but they do. So he went on back up in the woods, and I walked on up there, and I saw why. She was having a little one. The nose was sticking out. So he was catching her in birth, and he was waiting to kill her. So I took my knife, drug her up on the sand, and took that knife and cut that little deer out and put him down my coat sleeve. Took him back to my wife. Anyhow, we raised that little deer on the boat. And what a lovely, had a lot of pictures of that. And so after he got, 6 months old or something, he would jump just way high in the backyard. And I was afraid he'd hurt our little girl. He wasn't on purpose. So we gave him to some people up there in Apple Valley. And we went up to see him. He had a set of antlers. It was huge because they was giving the best horse feed you could imagine. And so then they called us and said, Roger, I'm sorry to say, but some dogs, his name was Flag, after the little flag, like on his tail sticking up. So he said, but some dogs scared Flag, and he jumped that 8-foot fence and got away. So I said, all right, well, Flag's back in the wild. It's okay. And then a few weeks later, we saw on the front page of the LA Times, a mystery deer never seen in California was found nuzzling the tourist in Angeles National Park. So there he was. So they took him and put him in a petting zoo. So the deer spent his years out in a petting zoo. So it was some wonderful.
Your wife stayed with you all.
Oh, my wife has been with me through every bit of it. She followed me one place to another, helped me escape, buried money for me. Like one time, I told her I was going to get out of that German prison, and I'd get to Holland. And she had a first cousin live there. I said, put some money on his farm, put $100,000 there. So she come back and says, I sent a little barrel, these double barrels in it. You go to the haystack, and then you go to the linden tree and take 10 steps to the right. And there I've got it buried. So after I escaped from the German prison, I got to Holland, and I went to the haystack, and I looked, and every which way you look was linden trees. It didn't take long to find it. I got me a rod and kind of figured out which Lyndon Tree she was probably talking about. Stuff like that. Just
Were you able to keep money from all of your escapades?
not much, no, just enough for her to live on. But she worked during all those years.
But at one point, you were collecting millions.
One time I had $60 million.
Really?
Yeah. I bought that land it's now Moreno Valley, and paid a lot for the planning and zoning. I bought the most expensive corn in the world. It's a Brasher de Bloom. And I can't say the word, but the newspaper for the rare corns asked the man where I bought it from if I would. It was at St. Mystery Buyer buys the most expensive corn in the world, was on the newspaper. So the Bank of Miami, really lovely bank, they came to him and says, we will insure the corn for $1 million if you can put it in the bank. So they built a pedestal and put black velvet and a spotlight on it and the most expensive corn in the world. And it stayed there for years in the Bank of Miami. So I did some stuff like that. It was fun.
What are you proudest of?
Proudest of? My family. And nothing else. All that other stuff is just fleeting. You got love and got your family. I got the children just love me. My wife loved me and stood with me. And that's just unbelievable. Just unbelievable. And I might, if you got time, I might read you a poem that my daughter wrote me when I was in prison. Would that be all right?
Sure.
Okay, I got it right here. I wrote this book here, in Smuggler. So I'm going to put it right in there.
This is your book?
That's my book, yeah. So here they are.
This is a poem from your daughter?
This is my daughter. This is a picture of my wife and the two girls at the rodeo. So anyhow, here she goes. It's a little bit long, but I think she encapsulates my life. 17 years old. I've been arrested when I came back from somewhere, and I'm in Lompoc Penitentiary. And she says, a year ago I became a poet when I wrote your birthday prose, and here I am today ready to give it another go. First, I would like to wish you a very happy birthday to be, and to thank you very much, for without you I would not be me. Secondly, I want to say that your support has been immense. It's been true, honest, loving, and free of all pretense. Thirdly, it goes without saying that your love has surpassed all my wrongs, and you always made me smile with one of your old country songs. I remember on Cuervo, Daddy, with you holding me in your arms as you sang Jim Reaves songs and talked about the farm. I can see you walking through the door from one of your travels far and wide, and the thought of you coming home, Daddy, kept a twinkle in our eyes. And I can smell you as I did when I used to climb into your bed, and you would talk to me again about one of the adventures that you led. I can see me and Mario asleep in one of your airplanes extraordinaire, and remember wondering to myself why there wasn't an available chair. I remember having to meet you and worrying that you wouldn't be there, but you would pop from behind some counter and give us all a happy scare. You gave us presents in Key Biscayne and hotel pleasures galore, and 3 dozen roses as we came through the airport door. When I saw your face in Amsterdam at the luggage carousel, you looked like a boy with a secret that you were just dying to tell. You taught me mathematics in the sands of faraway places. You taught me how to sail, and sometimes we left without any traces. We climbed glaciers in Argentina and saw the blue of the beautiful caves and witnessed the majestic beauty of such jagged crystalline mazes. I learned how to change gears on the dirt roads of Brazil. We ate hot dogs in Paraguay, a memory we smile over still. We talked about lions, elephants, and bears on a hacienda Uruguay, but decided it was better if to Europe we did fly. Oh, the old world and all its luxury, what a good time it was. From South America to the Krasnopolski, I think we fell in love. The European jaunt, well, it's to be considered a book all in itself, but it's a story about beauty, knowledge, suspense, and worldly wealth. We went from Holland to Sweden, and we went from France to Spain, and I promise you that I have no regrets. I would definitely do it all again. I would see the world with you any time, sir. There's no doubt in my mind, because being by your side, Daddy, always ensures a wild good time. So our paths took a little turn, and we're back in the U.S. of A., but life here isn't so bad, and I'm plumb content to stay. I'm happy to be near you, although I'm not as close as before, but because of your love and encouragement, I've been able to open new doors. I'm grateful to be in school and I'm generally happy where I am, and I even like it when you call and tell me to study for my next exam. What a life you've given me, Daddy. It's a tremendous and a magical gift. We already have so many stories to tell, there are far too many to list. But I want to thank you again this day with a very big happy birthday to you, and to tell you just a few more things that I know in my heart to be true. That I love you, Daddy, with all of your wrongs and your rights, that you are the head of our family and you've kept us all bound tight, that you have a love in your heart for God and all mankind, and you truly do believe in yourself when you say it will all be fine. I know you'll be there to catch me if ever I waver or slip. I know I'd want you as a captain on any sinking ship. I also know a new chapter is written. It's almost time to move on. It's time to sail another sea and to witness a brand new dawn. It'll be good to see you at the helm again as you point out our destination and to laugh and dance on the upper deck as the boat glides through. It'll be good to see you on the go, as I know you like to be, and to know you can open any door without requiring a key. But while we revel in our days together, we will know better than to hurry, because as you told me many times, life is an incredible journey. That's my 17-year-old daughter.
You must have given your family such an exciting life.
Yes. We had a lovely life. I was good to them. They were good to me. We still are. We're still closely knit.
Your wife, who I just met, seems very, very happy.
Yeah, absolutely. We're both almost 82 years old and 61 years married. The government was it. We all paying the price of Tricky Dick wanting to stay in power. You know how all that come about.
Do you have any regrets?
Of course I have regrets. One thing I wish, I didn't like school. I was like a little boy, Tom Sawyer. I was looking out the window and all my thoughts, so I didn't pay attention. I thought she was like a warden over me. So I wish I would have just been mature enough to have studied my lesson. I didn't know that, I would say I'm not particularly gifted, but that I could have done well if I would have studied my lesson. And that, of course, I would have loved to have been a professional person like my daughter is. She's danced through medical school. So I might not have danced, but I could have done something like that and been good for my family. And I wanted to be a farmer. Well, if I could have been a doctor in a little country town and had to farm out there, I would have loved to have done something like that. That's who I am. So yes, and to leave my family for 33 years for something that I come home, I was driving with my wife down the road, and we got up there near Santa Barbara, and there was a big billboard. And I said, stop, turn around. Let's go back and look at this. So she got the little phone, and you can see it on my web page. I got down into Briars under this big sign, and I said, look here, folks. I just did 33 years in prison for possession of marijuana. And the first sign I see when I come down the road, relax, we deliver your marijuana to your house. I got 4 million views before they took it down.
Huh. How do you feel about that?
It's just insane. It's just like they shot me over making whiskey. Now the Tennessee walkers with their barrels of whiskey driving through town. It's all hypocrisy. It's just politicians and fake news. Donald Trump got it right. Fake news. They'll say anything to sell a newspaper or sell a word. I mean, prostitute themselves something terrible. Just let my stuff go in print and let me get elected again. And they don't care. And it's wrong. If I could tell President-elect Trump anything, I would say open the doors for everybody. Everybody, state and all that's in there for marijuana, and also in there for cocaine, pure cocaine, no violence. Before Nixon and his war on drugs, trying to keep his war in Vietnam going in his favor, he killed all his people in Kent State, and Kissinger said, if you want to stay in the White House, you better stop this. And so lock up the black men for heroin and the hippies for marijuana. And they made these things from where it was like nothing to life in prison. It's just so wrong and to make you vomit. To see those tens of thousands or millions of people went through prisons, lost their homes and their families, it's just wrong. And Until that, cocaine was a non-narcotic controlled substance. Say what you want to, it was used in everything. So yeah, I don't do drugs, and I don't nobody else do. But you pay a million.
Have you ever done hard drugs?
Yeah, I've done just about everything, but I don't like it a bit.
Yeah.
It's just like, when's this going to be over? I inhale, but it's just I don't care for it, and I'm sorry for people that need that. I like myself like I am, but yes, it was. There's some of those people. Those things are not so dangerous on their own. Is the danger that the government does stopping it. Help those people that need it. Help those people on the street. Help them. I mean, right now, I was in. Before I got out, they shipped me back from Australia. I got life down there for cocaine, and I did 18 years. And they brought me back here in the United States, and I mean, I was just in an open prison. It was maximum security, but in open, nice, treated well. And I got off that airplane. There's 5 or 6 of them is border patrol. They slammed me and busted my nose into the wire, kicked my feet apart, put so many leg irons and chains on me till I couldn't walk, and put me in prison for a year for marijuana possession from 43 years ago. It's just like, what on earth did those people come from? And I was treated badly. I was put in isolation. I mean, absolute isolation, because I'd escaped so many times. And there was a guy who come there, and I said, what in the world am I doing this thing like this? And he raised it up, and he put the little Judas window up, and he says, Reaves, I just want to see what you look like. I saw your National Geographic documentary, and that's where I bragged about it cutting out of the detention center. He said, and it does me pleasure to keep you in isolation. I stayed there a year. Then they sent me to, where was it? Anyhow, where the planes land halfway I can't think of where it is right now. But Oklahoma. They have a place there, I guess, got 1,800 beds. And there's just planes coming in there, 22 different planes coming from everywhere, hauling prisoners around. Why? I'd meet a nice fellow. Where are you from? I'm from Albany, Georgia. And I said, what are you from? He said, I got caught with 5 grams of methamphetamine, and they sending me to Los Angeles for psychiatric evaluation. What? Yeah, man, that's insane. He said, it'd take me 6 months to go out there and come back before the judge. And I met another fellow. Where are you from? I'm from San Diego. What happened to you? I got caught with 5 grams of methamphetamine. They sending me to Atlanta, Georgia for psychiatric evaluation. Just zoom, zoom, zoom. It's just such waste. It's pathetic. So those people can do it, but they just, it ain't right. They should open the doors to the people for nonviolent drug offenses such as that, and help these people. Help them. I mean, on the street, all these people. There's plenty of people that know how to help, and they know how to do this. They just don't want to do it. They got to clean this up. And another approach is not working.
No, it's not. Roger, let me ask you one more question. What would you say is the most important lesson you learned in your life?
You know, I don't know if it's important or not, but I didn't realize that everybody will tell on you if the stakes are high enough. They got wife and babies. They can just cry and say, I'm so sorry, but they'll throw you in the fire or under the bus. I didn't think that. When we came out to California, we had a guy named Jack Tripp, lovely man. He owned an apartment house there in Torrance, 40 units, a nice place. And so Maury and I got the job being the apartment manager, and we stayed there 4 years. We loved it. But he said, first thing you got to do, remember, people are no damn good, and they'll prove it. Give them a chance, and they'll prove it. We said, oh, no, how can you say that? But after 4 years of people sleeping out at night, not paying their rent, you kind of think, well, yeah, it's something. But I don't think that. I still love all people. I trust everybody. I love everybody. I don't see anybody hurt. Even in prison, I would take up for the underdog in a knife fight somewhere. I would try to stop it. It's just my nature. I'm an outlaw, but I don't think I'm much of a criminal. And it showed, and even in prison, it shows. People know whether you're bad or not.
All right. Roger Reaves, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure.
Very interesting life you've lived. Thank you. Even though Soft White Underbelly consists of a lot of videos, it's really still a photography project to me. And if you appreciate the photography, sometimes it's difficult to enjoy it when it's scrolling down the screen, which is the only option I had in this horizontal format on YouTube. So last year we came out with the first Soft White Underbelly book, which is a collection of the best portraits from the thousands of interviews I've done. Each portrait in this book is accompanied by an interesting quote from the person's interview.
Oh my God.
There's more.
Wow. These aren't as bad as I thought. I look like a witch.
I will not be reprinting this book when it sells out. So once it's gone for good. You can order yours at softwhiteunderbelly.org. $125, $150 for a signed copy. And thank you for watching.